Let's get you this conversation now. The newly introduced sexual harassment policy for South Africa's judiciary has been widely welcomed. Chief Justice Mngambi says it's aimed at curbing the abuse of power and protecting the integrity of the courts. Judiciary spokesperson and Free State Judge President Cagney Musi joining us now to tell us more about how all of this is going to work. Good evening to you, Judge Musi. Good to have you with us. Let's start with just how widespread has the issue of sexual harassment been in the judiciary?
Good evening, Xoli, and to your viewers and listeners. This is not because of the fact that it is widespread. I think it is a realization and acceptance by the judiciary that we are but a microcosm of society. And if sexual harassment in the workplace is something that is very prevalent, we assume and accept that it's also probably happening within the judiciary and that some proactive steps must be taken to curb it.
Yeah. I suppose, let me ask the question differently, perhaps.
Yes.
Because the understanding is that there may have been even difficulty capturing the stats of this issue, given that there was no policy to begin with. In came the case of Judge Mngambi, and how self-defeating was that? Because if you read some of the text released by the Chief Justice Mngambi on Women's Day, when she announced this policy, she says very clearly that judges should and must lead by example. How embarrassing has this been?
Well, Xoli, I would not like to discuss the Judge President's case, Judge President Mngambi's case, because it's sub judice. We still do not have a judgment in the matter. But coming back to the fact that there are no stats, you must remember that sexual harassment is very pervasive, but it is also something that many of the victims would not talk about. And you must also bear in mind that it's normally about power relations, and people do not complain or report sexual harassment that freely. So it's true, we do not have the stats, but it is something that we must deal with. That is why in the policy itself, we distinguish between a report as well as a complaint. So in other words, a victim may just lodge a report so that it is something that we know is happening, and therefore we will be able to keep the stats. And if there's a complaint, the complaint will be dealt with by the Judicial Complaints Committee, and it will be taken forward. And if it reaches the stage where a tribunal is set up, then a judge may even be impeached.
Yeah. The Chief Justice imploring judges to basically urgently familiarize themselves with this policy to ensure adherence. But there's a particular line I'd like to read out for you. She says, this is not merely a document. It is a covenant with the people of South Africa. We must lead by example. How quickly is this going to be operationalized?
Well, Xoli, it's already operationalized in the sense that the policy itself enjoins not only the heads of the high courts, but also of the magistracy, the Magistrates Commission, the Judicial Service Commission, to make sure that periodically reports are filed about any incident or lack thereof of sexual harassment, firstly. Secondly, the policy itself was sent to all heads of court in order for them to disseminate it to members of the judiciary, both in the high courts as well as in the lower courts. So they are all aware of it. And in any event, in terms of our codes of conduct, both the magistracy as well as the judges, it would be an offense a transgression of the code if one party sexually harasses another, because it will bring the judiciary in disrepute. Furthermore, sexual harassment may also be a criminal offense. And the code or the policy, as you have seen probably, also states that the victim's right to lodge a complaint with the South African police is not taken away by the policy. In other words, there can be parallel complaints, firstly, with the Magistrates Commission or the Judicial Service Commission, and then secondly with the police.
Yeah. Just perhaps out of interest, I want to go back to my first question to you about just how widespread or prevalent this behavior has been within the judiciary. How were cases of sexual harassment dealt with within the Judicial Service Commission? How was it dealt with? Like the reporting lines and what have you?
Well, Xoli, there are reporting lines for all unacceptable conduct or conduct that breaches our code of conduct, and that is to lodge a formal complaint with the Judicial Service Commission, but they have a committee called the Judicial Conduct Committee. The complaint will then be investigated, and should they find that there is sufficient evidence to point to the fact that if the allegations made in the complaint might be true, then a tribunal is set up. The tribunal will then investigate the complaints, and should they find that there is indeed substance in the complaint and find the judge guilty of sexual harassment, they may even, under those circumstances, recommend that the judge be impeached.
That's very strong.
So the reporting channels has always been there. It's just that over the years, there have not been a policy. That we did not have a policy that specifically deals with sexual harassment. But sexual harassment in all its manifestations is unacceptable. It has always been something that the judiciary frowns upon, and it has always been something that can form the subject matter of a complaint against the judge or a magistrate for that matter.
So based on your understanding of this new policy, the enforcement of consequences, Judge Musi, for violators, regardless of seniority, how quickly is that going to be enforced, and what will the timeline be?
Well, there is no set timeline, Colin. You will appreciate that each and every case has its own variables, but as soon as a complaint is lodged with the conduct committee of the Judicial Service Commission, it will be investigated, and should there be a finding that there is indeed substance in the complaint, it will go to a tribunal. Unfortunately, over the years, our experience has been that these matters are not dealt with very swiftly, but there are, fortunately, moves afoot to make sure that the Judicial Conduct Committee is sufficiently capacitated. So it would be difficult for me to give you a timeline, because there are indeed no timelines within the complaint structures as to how quick a matter must be dealt with, but we endeavor in all complaints to make sure that it is dealt with as soon as possible.
Well, you would understand why I'm asking that question based on the existing case. And yes, we are not going to discuss Judge Mngangi's case, but you can understand the impact of this on the person who is the complainant, the continued workplace discomfort. Is it not in the best interests of this policy, as new as it is, that those kinds of things are dealt with expeditiously so that it's clear?
Yes, Polly, you would note that there is no provision in the policy that it be dealt with as expeditiously as possible, but All complaints, we endeavor to deal with all complaints as expeditiously as possible. Unfortunately, if there is a tribunal set up, the matter might take long because there are also competing rights here. On the one hand, we have the rights of the complainant or victim, and on the other hand, we have the complainant of the accused person or alleged perpetrator. But you would note that the policy itself is a victim-centered policy. So therefore, we take full cognizance of the rights of the victim, and we will ensure that the rights of the victim are protected to the hilt. And that includes making sure that these matters are fast-tracked and be dealt with as expeditiously as possible.
Judge Kenny Musi, thank you very much for your time, doubling up as the spokesperson of the South African judiciary.